So welcome back to the Hero Informer. This is AJ, and strap in your seatbelts, everybody. This one is going to get a little bit hectic and crazy, as this issue, this giant story, covers a wide range of topics. And at the end, it reveals something so crazy, it shakes up Wolverine and his entire lore and history and hierarchy forever. Or at least it has the potential to. But for starting off, we move back over into the present where we see him still fighting the Adamantine, this almost golden metal of Greek origin who has come back to hurt him and wants to take over and get rid of all the other adamantium. But the very sentient metal has chosen Romulus, another Wolverine villain that isn't too important right now for this story, but it has chosen him as its host. And we see Wolverine is on the back foot, getting defeated and beat down at every turn. Romulus, as his new avatar of the Adamantine, is just too powerful, too strong, too durable, too fast. Wolverine, while not dying because his healing factor is kicking in and he's healing, he is not winning by any stretch of the imagination either. Romulus taking this time to speak to Logan, saying, "We weren't made for this time, you and I, Logan. We are beasts, warriors of tooth and claw. Ridding the entire world of adamantium is just a start. With the Adamantine's power, I will choose to remake the earth, bring back the age of myth, the age of bloody glory, and the strength of arms. It is going to be an age fit for men like us." As while holding Logan up by his head, he continues on saying that time and time again you sided with the weak and the other people not as strong, tending to the wounded and letting the enemies escape, befriending monsters you should slay, and defending scrawny scientists. Going on to note Logan's role as a hero in the modern times as nothing more than a weakness that warriors like him should get rid of. Romulus continues saying, "You have proven you aren't worthy of the Adamantine's vision, but maybe your daughter is." And with this direct, almost threat on his family, his daughter that he holds clear and dear, Wolverine almost acts on instinct. Yes, he is hurt, beaten, and almost fully defeated, yet and still his adamantium claws shoot out. As he goes on to think to himself, this Adamantine wants to rid the world of adamantium. And if I fall here, Laura, or X-23, whatever you want to call her, would be the next target in his path. And right now the thought of her is the only thing keeping him going. And so he starts to do just that, starting to finally fight back. Of course, being fueled by the rage and determination to protect his children, to protect his own. And the thing is, Logan could get as angry as he wants. His adamantium isn't scratching or putting a dent in the adamantine that is covering the entire body of Romulus. Until Logan finally sees the one glaring and pretty big weak spot. The almost Achilles heel within Romulus's power, his mouth. As instantly Wolverine shoots for it, stabbing him straight through the mouth, which just has to hurt, even with how powerful Romulus is here. Blood just gushing everywhere as Romulus, this avatar of the Adamantine, for the first time starts to finally die. And while Logan is watching all of this go down, suddenly, as soon as Romulus is done, the Adamantine jumps off of his body in a very symbiote type way, saying, "Disappointing. This one here was not worthy of my gifts after all. But you, Wolverine, you champion, you may be." Many champions over the years have claimed to be one, fully united with their weapons, but you are truly united with yours. As this ball of golden energy, this golden metal of the gods, continues to shift and change while still speaking to Logan, it goes on to say that animal savagery with heroic purpose. Yes, you have the false metal of the adamantium within you, but you also have a true spirit. You are truly something new. Is that what this current modern age needs? Tainted heroes of tainted metal, men who are also weapons. Now that we have been fully reawakened, we must know our purpose in this new world, and to know this world fully, we must make war in it ourselves, as we see the Adamantine's true form, taking the form of almost a very armored knight. And Wolverine, even after all of this, seeing this entire situation unfolding, he of course just defaults back to his original plan. Find the Adamantine and stab it and try to destroy it. As he goes on to say, it's finally good to have a body to go with the name. It makes it easier to kill you. But Logan didn't have any hope before with Romulus, and he doesn't have any now, as the Adamantine just backhands him and defeats him once more. But this Adamantine here, it doesn't want to end Logan here and now. As it goes on to say, our contest will come soon enough, but not today. First, we must learn the truths of this new age. What is it like to live and what it is like to kill. And then, champion, we will return to finish this, as it just seeps into the earth and leaves, leaving Logan utterly confused and shaken up against this entire situation that he has found himself in. But now with the immediate threat of the Adamantine and his life hanging in his battle gone, he goes back up to find Laura. And after explaining the entire situation with what not only happened with Adamantine and how it took Romulus's body, we move outside and see some of his other allies, the Wendigo that Logan has been training and trying to help, and Nightcrawler, his fellow X-Men. Us even finding out that the boy, the little child that has been turned into this Wendigo from the curse of the forest, he's closer to the surface than he has ever been before. So close to reverting back, so close to becoming back fully human, and it's all thanks to Logan. It seems like this story and almost adventure has a happy ending. For now, the Adamantine is gone and at bay. Logan here with his allies are all safe, and even the Wendigo problem is soon coming to a conclusion. Everything seems to be looking up for Logan in his entire situation. That is, until just everything cuts to black, and this entire story takes a whole different route. With even Logan himself being super confused, like, whoa, hold up, why is everything black and why don't I remember how I got here? Which of course, as you would, unless you were like drinking or on some type of substance, you're not just going to randomly black out and forget the last entire day. As he goes on to narrate and say, I wake up too slowly, and that's the first sign that something is wrong. Because I'm an animal, I don't do the sleepy-eyed, leisurely yawn type of thing, I snap awake, which means I've been drugged. And that in of itself is not an easy thing to do. Sedatives that usually would kill a horse barely give me a buzz. All this to say that whoever has drugged Logan, whoever has brought him here for whatever reason, they have prepared for him specifically. They know him. So Logan is set to figure out who and why. So after eventually cutting down the door and heading out, he realizes that whoever planned for him to be here, planned for this entire situation, knows him and knows him well, as even there's gas outside that is so powerful that it overpowers his senses. And after wandering a little bit more, he finally sees it. An older villain of his named Arcade. Well, I guess he's not just a Wolverine villain specifically, you know, over the years, he has tackled and tussled with a couple of different heroes. But him and Wolverine have a little bit of history if you couldn't already get that picture. Of course, Arcade being a genius level intellect, he has planned and set up this entire thing. Because he is also a psychopath at that. His main focus though here is entertainment, above all else. And as we find out, he wants Logan here to partake in a little bit of a game. But it's not a solo show or a solo game, no, he has co-stars. As we see the Wendigo, the creature Logan is trying to change and tame, almost bring him back to human form, has also been captured. The Wendigo being strapped to some sort of torture device, trying to test the limits of the creature's patience before he starts raging out and goes into an animalistic frenzy and starts biting other people and killing them, which of course absolutely ticks Logan off, because after all of the work and training trying to make the Wendigo better, get him back to normal, it might be all undone from this one villain's antics. So Logan instantly gets on the trail, going through this death maze and specifically crafted arena to get to him. On the way, we see different traps and arenas are specifically tailored to him to invoke some sort of response. As when he makes it to one of the rooms, we find out that it's made to look like the Weapon X program. You know, the place where he was experimented on and essentially became the Wolverine he is now, where the experiments were performed on him. The villain trying to dig into Logan's trauma to throw him off, mocking his past to make him lose focus. And with Logan even going on to say, it's working like a charm. Because regardless if you know someone is trying to push your buttons, that still doesn't mean the buttons stop working. And when he moves on, we see a couple other arenas and areas specifically made to hurt Logan by bringing up his past. In one instance, we see Silver Fox, one of Logan's previous love interests, who was murdered by Sabretooth, among a couple others, until he finally reaches through and gets to the main area where we see the Wendigo himself. But as soon as Logan gets close, getting ready to untie and free the Wendigo and get out of here, suddenly the Wendigo attacks Logan. The creature's bloodlust and frenzy spiked up, and now he's just lashing out and attacking anything in sight. But that's the thing, Logan is almost an animal himself. Yes, he's still a man, but when pushed far enough and gets too deep into violence, he can almost instinctively tap into his own version of an animalistic frenzy. As he even goes on to say, the fighting just starts to get my bloodlust going. But I do manage to retract my claws and pull myself back from the edge, but it wasn't easy. So Wolverine, seeing that fighting isn't going to get anywhere, he decides to go a little bit of a peaceful route, putting his hands up in surrender and showing he's not here for a fight. But of course, the Wendigo being an almost mindless animal, only wanting pain and destruction, Logan is on the opposite end of a beating, and so he just has to sit there and take it. Thankfully, of course, he has his healing factor, meaning he isn't going to take any permanent sustained damage, but even with the healing factor, you still feel pain, as we see Logan pretty beat up and hurt. But eventually, the Wendigo snaps out of it, seeing the blood on his hands and what he's doing. Because deep down, this Wendigo is still just a kid who was unfortunate enough to be within a couple of bad instances and circumstances, but still a kid nonetheless. But it seems like the villain Arcade isn't done yet, as he presses a button and encages Wolverine in some type of trap. A giant dome being dropped down on top of him, as he goes on to say this glass here that the dome is made out of is finished with adamantium dust. Sure, your indestructible adamantium claws can cut through it, but it's going to take some time. Meanwhile, while you're trying to escape, the tank is going to be filled with the most volatile, fast-acting, flesh-eating acid on the planet. But this Arcade here didn't account for the Wendigo to still be a player on the field, as while Logan is trapped, he jumps up and crashes through his little safe area, biting him in the shoulder and making him bleed out. Which is one problem down, but back with Logan, he is still in the problem of his own, as when he starts cutting through, he realizes that yes, it's scratching the surface, but it's agonizingly slow. And as the acid starts rushing in, we see that it wasn't any type of hyperbole, it's the real deal, as even Logan goes on to say, I can feel the acid dissolving my skin. In another half a minute, he is going to be nothing but bone and metal. Or he would be, until the Wendigo comes crashing through, cracking the glass with his fist and opening Logan up. Unfortunately though, this dome here is still filled with all of the acid, as now it comes rushing out and burning the Wendigo now. And just like that, after saving Logan, the Wendigo drops dead. Leonardo, the kid's name, his heartbeat is gone, and Logan cannot hear him breathing. But this doesn't make sense, the acid wouldn't do this. This has to be something more, as yes, we find out it very much is, as for whatever reason, the kid underneath Leonardo is back in the flesh, back to be human. Now, does it make sense? No, but of course the how he turned into a Wendigo in the first place was because of a magic curse in a Canadian forest, so you know, this whole situation, take it with a grain of salt, and it doesn't really make sense in the first place. Either way, what is known, the heroes have won, and the villain Arcade, even though he was hurt and bleeding, he eventually was able to escape, allowing Wolverine and now this Leonardo to do a little bit of their own escaping. And as we cut over a few days later, we see Logan has almost taken a mentor or a father figure to this kid here. So he is a little bit personally invested inside of his, well-being, as he takes him back home, takes him back to his mother, who has been desperately searching for him. Of course, with him inviting Logan in for dinner, we see an interesting revelation and interaction going here with Logan. As he watches this family, this mother and child, reconnect, he almost gets jealous. Well, maybe jealous isn't the right word. It's more of Logan seeing this happy family dynamic, he realizes the tragic life he has had. And this right here, this interaction, this, normal family, or normal relatively, is something that he never got to experience. Because as he goes on to think, I am luckier than most ex-soldiers, the healing factor, meaning I don't have any outside wounds or trauma, but only on the outside. But some of the wounds I got before I became a soldier, before I was even a man. As soon as my mutation emerged, my own mother called me an animal, then cast me out of the house. And then she took her own life. On every Mother's Day, when people start going on about how great and everything that their mothers did for them, Logan instead just gets real quiet. Later that night though, as we pick up with Logan by himself, after everything that has transpired with not only the Adamantine, the whole Wendigo thing, Arcade, Logan, rightfully so, needs a little bit of downtime, as we see him doing just that, kicking back, drinking a beer and watching some TV. That is until he gets a knock on the door, which isn't the most craziest thing, but the reason why this is unsettling and it even spooks Logan is because whoever knocked, whoever did this, they didn't leave any sort of trace. Logan is a natural born hunter, but even still, he didn't smell or hear anyone approach. And as he opens up the door, he sees just a singular letter, with no one around to claim who sent this or what it's from. So of course he goes to open it and read it. And here, believe me when I tell you, this is a pretty shocking revelation that could potentially leave lasting impacts for Logan and the lore of Wolverine for years to come, as it goes on to say, my dearest and most precious James, I've been told that you now answer to the name Logan. Still, I find it impossible to think of you anything other than my sweet and loving James. I know, beloved son, that my horrid treatment of you has rendered you void of any claim that I might have to your family loyalties. But our family's enemies are closing in on me, and I cannot face this threat alone. So though I have no right to do this, I must write to you and ask you for your help. I don't doubt that you resent me deeply, and that your first impulse and instinct will be to refuse me, but I do hope, at least, you will make some time to meet up after all of this time, all of these years, if only to learn why I was forced to treat you so poorly, as well as the circumstances of my miraculous survival. And if you haven't guessed it already, the person sending this message was none other than Logan's mother, Elizabeth Howlett. Logan, Wolverine, after seeing this giant revelation, he says he nearly collapses as memories from his early days starts flooding his mind and his senses. Feelings that he has buried for more than a century come clawing out of their graves. Every rational thought and part of him knows this should be impossible, shouldn't even be alive. But the scent, the smell of this letter isn't rational. The letter in his hand smells like the very first scent he has ever took in, which is a very, very interesting revelation, but it does beg a few questions like, Logan was born in the 1700s, whatever, how is his mother still alive? And if I had to be a betting man and give my guess on it, we know within the Marvel universe and lore that mutations, usually are passed down or have the possibility to be from other people in the same family. So what if Logan isn't the only one previously to have the healing factor within his family? Maybe he could have gotten that mutant gene from his mother, meaning if Logan survived all this time, so would she. So yeah, very, very interesting stuff, and concludes this legacy issue of Wolverine, which is why it touched on so many different storylines and plots and things moving forward, because, you know, the threat of the Adamantine is still out there, and now with Logan having to deal with his supposed reemergence of his mother, yeah, it's a pretty big deal. Either way though, if you have enjoyed, leave a like, or consider joining the channel membership if you want to support what I do here and get access to even more crazy things. As always, this was AJ here at The Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.